Wyatt's Favorite Radio.
And hello, my friends. Welcome to our podcast of Wyatt's Favorite Radio. We have not aired on Classic Radio Theater, which is our main podcast, any episodes of John Lund as Johnny Dollar. And so that's what we're going to do here on this podcast. We're going to air an episode. This one goes back to Friday, December 5th, 1952. If you are a fan of yours truly, Johnny Dollar, being done by our beloved Bob Bailey, who did such a wonderful job with the character, you will find that today's program should sound familiar. It was reused, I think, twice in later runs of the program. But this program was originally broadcast Friday, December 5th, 1952, and it is entitled The James Clayton Matter. And we will listen to that as soon as I tell you a few of the things that happened on Friday, December 5th, 1952. President Truman accepted the resignation of Archibald Cox as chairman of the Wage Stabilization Board, named Charles C. Killingworth to replace him. Cox quit in protest against Truman's decision to overrule the board in the soft coal wage increase case. Truman ordered approval of the full $1.90 a day increase negotiated by John L. Lewis for his United Mine Workers. The board had voted against any increase beyond $1.50 a day on the grounds it would be inflationary. Dynamic Walter P. Reuther elected president of the CIO yesterday in a political scrap winding up the labor group's annual convention. Reuther, the 45-year-old chief of the CIO million-member auto workers union, selected in a hotly contested balloting over Alan S. Haywood. He was the veteran 64-year-old executive vice president of the organization. South Korea turned down yesterday an Indian compromise proposal for ending the Korean War, as the president of the UN Assembly wrote an appeal to the communists to accept it. Y.T. Pyun, foreign minister of the UN-sponsored Republic of Korea, announced that the government could not accept the Indian resolution approved Wednesday by 54 of the 60 members because it is against the spirit of the Constitution of the Republic of Korea. President Truman and the man he hoped would succeed him discussed plans for recapturing control of Congress in 1954, but both expressed agreement that the country's welfare should be placed ahead of the Democratic Party's. As Governor Adlai E. Stevenson put it, party interests must be subordinated to the interests of the country and public welfare. Hours later, Truman told a news conference the Democrats should give the new Republican administration a chance to operate, and he said he will be happy as anybody else if the Republicans operate all right. Chinese communists broke up their attacks on Sniper Ridge on the Central Front yesterday near Seoul after 24 hours of close-in battle in the closest weather of the year. And in Columbia, Mississippi, it seems that 2 collections were taken up at the First Methodist Church. While the stewards collected the offering in the auditorium, someone looted purses in the choir room of $100. Okay, that's some of the news from the newspapers of Friday, December 5th, 1952. And now I hope you will subscribe to our podcast. If you've just tuned in for once, I hope you will enjoy it. But we're going to bring you now John Lund in an episode of yours truly, Johnny Dollar, as it was originally broadcast on December 5th, 1952.
From Hollywood, it's time now for John Lund as Johnny Dollar.
Hi, Chet Graham, Johnny.
Who?
Wake up, boy. Chet Graham, Claims, New York Mutual.
Oh, hi, Chet. How are things?
Bad. Johnny, I have to make a little trip out to the coast on a phony claim. I'll be gone about 4 days, but I need someone to hold down my office while I'm away. Can you do it?
Oh, that's not my line, Chet. You know that.
Well, make it your line, Johnny. Somebody has to be here. Look, you can live in my apartment. You can use my tickets to Wish You Were Here. You can even take my girl if you want. New York's swell this time of year.
Can't you get anybody there?
Oh, everybody's got the flu or busy or something.
When do you want to leave for the coast?
I'd like to get out on the noon plane today.
Well, I can be down there by 11.
Good. We'll probably miss each other, but just walk right in the office and make yourself at home. I'll call you from L.A.
Have a good trip. By the way, what does your girl look like?
Even your best dream was never that good.
Just leave her phone number on your desk. John Lund, in a transcribed adventure of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to New York Mutual Underwriters Limited, Rockefeller Center, New York City. Attention, Mr. Chester Graham, claims and adjustments. Dear Chet, you probably read some of this in the Los Angeles papers, but they don't have the whole story. Maybe they'll never get it all. I hope not. I found out part of it, stumbled into the rest of it, and I'm trying to forget all of it. The following is an accounting of expenditures during your 4-day absence in my investigation of the James Clayton matter. Expense account item 1, $14.35 transportation Hartford to New York, where, as per your advice, I walked in your office, sat down, and made myself at home. And where, 15 minutes later, I had a caller.
Mr. Dollar, is it?
That's right.
The girl at the reception desk said Mr. Graham was out of town and that you were taking his place.
Yes. Please sit down.
Well, thank you, but I don't have time. I'm Miss Stebbins, Dr. James Clayton's nurse. He asked me to see you.
I see.
He gave me these policy numbers. He said that your company wrote these policies and that he'd like to talk to one of you.
Well, certainly, Miss Stebbins. He can come by anytime.
No, you don't understand. Dr. Clayton can't get away from the office. We're terribly rushed, and I really should be getting back myself. He's there all alone.
Well, do you know what it's about, Miss Stebbins?
No. The doctor's been acting strangely all day. He had me cancel all of his outside calls, and then he sent me here. He said to explain that it was very urgent. I'm very concerned for him.
The tall, pale brunette girl in the crisply starched uniform and cape was certainly concerned about something. She bit her lip, forced out a wan, unprofessional smile, and started to cry. I pretended not to notice all this as we got on the elevator and went down into the street. However, 10 minutes later, when we arrived at a suite of offices in the Pelroy building, I had to notice Dr. James Clayton. He met us at the door. Most of his costume was medically correct, white coat and carrying a stethoscope in one hand. But in the other, he brandished a .32 Ivor Johnson. The safety was off.
Oh, it's you.
Yes, Doctor. This is Mr. Dollar from the insurance office.
Claims investigation?
Yeah?
Oh, fine. Jane, this would be a good time for you to get some lunch, don't you think?
Well, Doctor, I have all of those lab reports to
No,
write.
go ahead, Janie. Like a good girl, I want to speak with Mr. Dollar alone.
Of course, Doctor, if you say so. Goodbye, Mr. Dollar.
Goodbye.
Come in, Mr. Dollar. Sit down. Very fine girl, Jane. She's worked for me a long time. Very fine.
Do you always meet her at the door with firearms, Doctor?
Oh, this. Well, all I can say is this is a ridiculous mess. My life's been threatened by a man who has definite homicidal tendencies. This, I don't even know how to load it. I look foolish, I suppose.
A threat on your life, Doctor, comes under the heading of police business.
I know that very well. And I would go directly to the police, only... Well, it is a delicate matter. You seem dubious already.
No, just curious. Go on, please.
Well, several months ago, I attended a patient named Florence Harmon. A thorough examination disclosed that her poor physical condition wasn't based on any organic disorder, but rather upon an emotional instability. Now, this, I finally discovered, was brought about by her marriage to an erratic, ruthless, ill-tempered man, Benjamin Harmon. I could only advise that she divorce him immediately.
Well, that's somewhat extreme, Doctor. Are you always certain of advice like that?
Well, in this case, there's no other answer. I approached Mr. Harmon on the subject last night at his home. I explained that Mrs. Harmon's health, her very life, is in jeopardy. And more's involved here than keeping intact a union which has nothing but legality as a binding force.
I see. But Mr. Harmon doesn't care for somatics, huh?
He attacked me. If it hadn't been for the assistance of Mrs. Harmon and a servant, he might have choked me to death. When I left, he threatened me.
Then you should have called the police.
Yes, I thought of that. But look, if you approached Harmon in the right manner, Dollar, he might discard his ideas of violence.
Well, you're the expert on homicidal tendencies, but Best thing I can see for you is to prefer assault charges and have him locked up.
I know all that, but it's for Mrs. Harmon's sake. Please understand, she's been through a shattering ordeal. Look, Mr. Dollar, would you go see him and talk to him? If you think he means it, really, then I'll call the police and prefer charges against him.
The Harmon residence was in Westchester, a story-and-a-half colonial with all the trimmings. There was a 51 Cadillac in the open garage and a 52 Ford station wagon in front of the house.
Yes?
This one didn't have a white coat or stethoscope, but he had a gun.
What is it?
Mr. Harmon?
I'm Harmon. What do you want?
Mr. Harmon, my name is Dollar. And
Dollar, huh? Get out of my way! Oh!
Here, Mr. Dollar. Drink this. Easy now.
Oh.
Take it, please. Oh, you had quite a blow. Try a little more. It should make you feel better.
What was... Who...
Oh, you can bring suit against him, against us. You can do anything you want to, Mr. Dollar. He's just ungovernable. He could easily have killed you.
You, Mrs. Harmon?
Yes.
Your husband think I was the Iceman?
Oh, I don't know what he thought. I just heard him yell at you, and when I came to the door, you were lying there, and he'd taken the station wagon and left. Why, last night he even attacked my personal physician and threatened to kill him. I don't know what's gotten into him. You'd better sit down.
Oh, it's getting better. Where'd he go?
Heaven only knows. Mad. That's what he is, Mr. Dollar. Mad. He's liable to do anything. I'm scared. I'm scared stiff.
I called Dr. Clayton, who promised to notify the police. It was about 5:45 when I got back to his office. A broad-shouldered man in a tweed suit was in the reception room.
Hi. You Dr. Clayton?
No. Hey, don't I know you?
I was thinking the same about you. Wait, Dollar?
Yeah.
Tom Bassman, Central Division.
Oh, sure. How are you, Tom?
Fine. Hey, you must be the one.
What?
This Dr. Clayton called downtown about a threat, said his insurance company had advised him to report it.
That's right.
Well, where is he?
Well, he should be here, Tom. What's his nurse say?
I rang the buzzer, no one around at all. What's this all about?
A man named Benjamin Harmon's threatened the doctor's life. I met him myself. He's carrying a gun, and he looked dangerous to me. I just came from his house.
He's still there?
No.
I better phone in and get a pickup out on him. When the doctor shows up, I'll get a complaint. Oh, hello.
Hello. Why, Mr. Dollar.
Hello, Miss Stebbins.
Is Dr. Clayton here?
This is Sergeant Bassman. We want to see him ourselves.
You're a police officer?
That's right, miss.
I heard him talking to you on the phone. Is anything the matter?
Just want to see him.
Well, goodness, he sent me out to pick up these things. He was here when I left. Oh,
What?
perhaps he had an emergency.
Well, is there any way we can find out?
Well, if he had one, it would be right here on the pad, because I always have to know. Oh, that's funny.
What?
He's on an emergency call, 1213 Alessandro Street.
Can I see that, please?
Uh-huh.
There's no name on this, Miss Stebbins. Do you recognize the address at all?
No, I don't. The doctor just wouldn't take a random emergency call unless it were very unusual.
This might be unusual. Dollar, how bad off did you think Harmon was?
Mad. Had a gun. Cracked me. Plenty rough.
Well, this is in the warehouse district.
Think we better go down there?
I think so. Wait.
What?
1213. Well, it'd have to be that vacant lot over there. This one's 1240, and the rest belong to that warehouse.
Yeah. Tom.
Hmm?
That car. MD on the license plate?
Yeah. Well, it might be Clayton's.
Yeah.
It's Clayton's car, all right.
He must be around here somewhere looking for 1213.
Yeah. Well, let's have a peek.
Tom.
I see. He's had it. Is it Clayton?
Yeah, that's him.
Some emergency this was.
Yeah.
We'll return to yours truly, Johnny Dollar, in just a moment. On weekends, it seems everybody takes his car out on the highways. Some drivers are less experienced than others. They either speed or poke along with a whole stream of cars behind them. Both types are a menace to safety. Whatever you do, be moderate, be obedient to all traffic laws. Be careful, use your head, and don't take chances. Now, with our star, John Lund, we bring you the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
An hour of questioning in the neighborhood turned up two people who recalled hearing the shots. And one man remembered seeing a man who answered Benjamin Harmon's description loitering in the vicinity of a nearby bar earlier in the evening. Obviously, Dr. Clayton had been lured to his death by the murderer who had telephoned him, pretended to need a physician, waited till the victim appeared, and then shot him down. Expense account item 3, $11.65. A good dinner, 3 martinis, tip, and thinking at Toots Shores. After which, I strolled over to the Pelroy building. Expense account item 4, $5 even. Bribed watchman.
I shouldn't be doing this, you know. Might lose my job over it.
I appreciate it.
But since you're from the insurance company, I guess you're all right.
Just looking around is all.
Too bad about the doctor. Nice fellow.
Very.
What do you think you'll find? A policeman been here till almost an hour ago, poking around.
You know if they found anything?
Sure.
Well, what?
Doctor's emergency kit. Heard him say he didn't take it with him when he went out on that emergency. Don't be too long.
The business about the emergency kit started me thinking. I opened Clayton's file drawer and skimmed through every patient's name from Abbott to Zabrowski. He'd been a thorough man, and from all evidences operated an efficient medical office. However, he had no medical history in his files on Florence Harmon. There was nothing to indicate that she had ever been a patient of his. On the other hand, there was an entry a year before which showed that he had examined, treated, and discharged Benjamin Harmon as a patient. I think these two developments supplied me with all of the curiosity I needed for a while. Nurse Jane Stebbins' home address was duly noted on Dr. Clayton's phone book. Oakdale House. Surprisingly enough, on Oak Street. Special rates for nurses, room 210.
Oh, Mr. Dollar.
How do you feel?
Not too good, Mr. Dollar. I just got home a little while ago. They kept me down there pretty long. Do you want to come in?
Thanks. I don't want to keep you up.
It isn't much of a place, is it? I mean, I haven't straightened it up for days, it seems. I'm sorry.
Things like this aren't easy. I know. Don't apologize to me.
Sit down, Mr. Dollar. Have they caught Mr. Harmon yet?
No, not yet. Miss Stebbins, you worked for Dr. Clayton a long while, didn't you?
5 years.
Then you should be able to tell me who he was going to marry.
Marry? Well, I didn't know. I have no idea.
He'd already made arrangements for a honeymoon.
Honeymoon?
Look, reservations on the Ile de France for next April. I found them in his desk drawer. Confirmed to Dr. and Mrs. James Clayton. Well?
What difference does it make?
I don't know. Seems strange that you've been with him for such a long time and didn't know about this. Or did you? All right. What about Mrs. Harmon?
Well...
Look, Miss Stebbins, things are wrong all the way down the line about your doctor's death. about what happened before it. It'll come out sooner or later.
I suppose it will. It's awful to say this, Mr. Dollar, but Mrs. Harmon was the only one Dr. Clayton saw socially. And she, of course, is married.
Of course. And the good doctor advised her to get a divorce. He meet her when Mr. Harmon was a patient of his?
Yes, that's right. They became friendly.
But Mrs. Harmon was never a patient.
No, never, just her husband.
What can you tell me about Mr. Harmon?
Well, really, all I know is he came in to see Dr. Clayton a few times. Over a year ago, I guess. Then after he saw what was happening between Mrs. Harmon and Dr. Clayton, he stopped coming in. I sent a copy of his medical history to another doctor.
But Dr. Clayton had been seeing Mrs. Harmon all this time.
It's awful to say this now, Mr. Dollar. The doctor's dead. I'm no moralist. We're all human. It's happened before. Married people have been attracted by others. I'm tired, Mr. Dollar.
Sure. Do you have any idea why I was called in today?
At first, I didn't. Well, of course, it happened. The police told me about Mr. Harmon's threats. But I don't understand what you're trying to do. The police want Mr. Harmon, and what does it all mean?
It means the wrong man was killed.
Please, Mr. Dollar.
I should have tumbled to it right away, but your husband fit the part too well.
Now, look here. I've been through quite enough today with the police looking for Ben. I don't have...
You and Clayton. I was going to be the star witness when the state tried him for shooting your husband. Whatever I said as a material witness would back up his self-defense plea and get him off on a justifiable homicide. Isn't that it?
I tell you, I won't listen.
And you and the doctor would sail to France and live happily ever after. What's the matter? Wouldn't your husband give you a divorce?
You won't listen. Go ahead. If you say it's that way, Mr. Dollar, and you know everything, I know you know everything, then it must be that way.
Yeah, only it got fouled up. Your husband did shoot your doctor boyfriend after all.
Get out of here. Get out of my house. You can't prove anything.
You're right, Mrs. Harmon. I can't prove anything. Not a thing. They catch your husband and they'll put him away for it. But you have something to live with for the rest of your life. Or maybe you didn't really love your doctor after all.
Get out! Get out! Leave me alone! Leave me
alone! What?
Well, that's it, Sergeant. I want to know if people can really get by with this kind of thing in our courts of law. If and when you pick up Benjamin Harmon, will he have any kind of defense?
Oh, we'll get him, Dollar. The others I can't answer. What you just told me is really a thing. I don't see how any lawyer can do much for a guy who threatens another man's life and finally guns him down, do you?
Supposing I could prove that Harmon was being set up as a patsy, that the doctor was really supposed to gun him down and plead self-defense.
Up to the judge and the jury. When we get Harmon, he'll be arraigned and indicted on first-degree murder charges. Don't worry about that. And if it goes that far, it generally means he'll get the works. After all, we're pretty sure he shot and killed the doctor.
Hang up, Dollar.
Huh?
You still there, Dollar?
Hang up or I'll blow your head off.
Benjamin Harmon wasn't kidding. He was blazing mad. He had a gun, and I knew he wasn't afraid to use it.
I was across the street when you left my place a little while ago. Fixing up another deal, were you?
I don't know what you're talking about, Harmon.
I followed you here so we could have this talk. And we're going to have it, you and I.
You ought to put that gun away and let them take you. They'll shoot you down if they see you.
Nobody's going to shoot me down, not yet. Now, where's your office?
Hartford, Connecticut.
I mean here. Where do you practice here? Come on.
I don't practice anything here. My office is in Hartford. This apartment belongs to a friend of mine. I'm standing in for him here while he's out of town.
Where's his office?
New York Mutual Liability.
I mean his law office. I want to get down there and see how much...
Hold on now. I'm not a lawyer. My friend's not a lawyer. We're insurance investigators.
Where's the office?
I tell you, we...
Listen. Clayton called me this morning and said a lawyer named Dollar was on his way over to talk to me about divorcing Florence.
If you hadn't started swinging that gun butt around, I'd have told you why I was there. I think I know why Clayton called you and told you that, but I don't...
You and he were trying to pull something to take my wife away from me. I know that much.
You're wrong, Harmon. I didn't know anything about that.
Nobody takes my wife away from me.
Now, that's the kind of temper that got you in all the trouble you're in. Look, you can shoot me here and I'll be number 2. But they'll get you real easy here.
You know I didn't kill Clayton?
How do I know you didn't kill him? You threatened him. Half a dozen people heard you threaten him. I have an idea why you did it, and you might have been right, but murder for any reason...
Shut up! You're in on it somewhere. You know who did kill him, and you're going to clear me, or I'll whip it out of you, Dollar. I'll whip it out of you! Why, you crazy...
All right. Here. Try this. Go on. I'm tired of fooling with you. Now get on your feet. Well, you got 1 point in your favor. This gun hasn't been fired. Do you have another one?
No.
Here, take another drink. Now, you have a chance to talk to me right now. I don't think the police will be interested in much you have to say.
I wanted to kill Clayton, but I didn't. Nobody will believe that. I know I've got a temper, and I've tried to control it, but I didn't kill him.
I'm not impressed with that. I want facts. Where were you when Clayton was shot?
How do I know? I didn't know what time he was shot.
Say between 5 and 6 today.
I was out getting mad. Fried.
Where? Who saw you?
No. After we met, I was so sore, I jumped in the car and went out and bought myself a jug. I know it sounds crazy, but I spent most of the time just sitting in the car down by the docks, just drinking and thinking and getting mad. I don't know what it was. I don't know when I walked over to the saloon, phoned Clayton. I told him I was on Alessandro Street and to come on down. I wanted to have a showdown.
You mean you wanted him to come down so you could kill him?
Maybe I did have that on my mind. I don't know. I waited an hour or so, but he never showed up. When I called back at his office, nobody answered. So I climbed back in my car, and that's where I heard about my being wanted for killing him. It was on the newscast. I didn't do it, Dollar. I swear I didn't. The others I knew about, and I didn't kill them.
What others?
Florence always had other friends. I guess I don't love her anymore, but I don't know. Maybe I hate her for all of it. When a man doesn't let part of his life walk away from him, I wouldn't give her a divorce. If I had let her get away with it, it would have been too much for me to hold.
Even though you didn't love her and you knew she didn't love you?
Yes.
That sounds stupid.
Maybe. I loved her once. She loved me the way two people only love at certain times.
Hell, no sense yet.
I'm not well, Dollar. Clayton gave me a year. Another doctor, 18 months. Finished anemia. The two of them could have waited at least till I was dead, couldn't they? Couldn't they?
I found some sleeping pills in your medicine cabinet, and I fed him a couple with some hot cocoa. He dropped off to sleep in your bed while I made some phone calls, confirming what he just told me. Expense account item 5, taxi fare, $4.05 back to Oak Street, to Oakdale House. Special rates for nurses.
I thought you'd be back. I'm glad it's you. I think somehow you're the kind of man who understands things.
I'll be a good listener. Go ahead.
When I first started as his nurse, I fell in love with him. I guess it's an old story. Terribly old and corny. But then he met her. I heard him tell you all those lies today about treating Mrs. Harmon. I was out in the hall. Didn't have any idea exactly what he intended to do until I heard him call Mr. Harmon right after you left. He told him you were a lawyer.
He knew Harmon was upset enough to attack me.
Doctor was very good about knowing what people would do. I was here when Mr. Harmon called him tonight. Doctor took the call and wrote it down on the pad. I saw him put the gun inside his coat, and I knew he was going down there to shoot Mr. Harmon. So I followed him. He was walking around in the dark looking for Mr. Harmon with a gun in his hand. I ran up to him and pleaded with him not to be crazy, that she wasn't worth it. Then he said he was going to kill me, too. We struggled and the gun went off I don't know how many times. Then I came back here and pretended I'd been down at the drugstore.
I see. What's your first name?
Jane.
Jane, Dr. Clayton made all sorts of elaborate plans so he'd have a self-defense plea. But you don't have to go to all that trouble. You can prove self-defense. He had the gun. He was going to use it on you.
I beg your pardon.
I can help you, Jane. It'll go second degree or manslaughter, suspended. You didn't mean to shoot him, but he meant to shoot you.
No. You're nice. But I can't get off.
What?
I guess they haven't found her yet. I killed Mrs. Harmon an hour ago.
Expense account item 6, same as 1, transportation back to Hartford. I didn't spend any other money, Chet. I didn't meet your girl, and I didn't see the musical. I didn't go anyplace. I just sat in your office and looked at the walls for the next 3 days. I'm leaving this where you'll see it when you come in tomorrow morning. Settle up and don't call me for a long time. A long, long time, if you call at all. Expense account total, $56.35. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, stars John Lund in the title role and is written by E. Jack Newman with music by Eddie Dunstetter. John Lund can currently be seen in the Universal International picture Just Across the Street. Featured in tonight's cast were Victor Perrin, Virginia Gregg, Joseph Kearns, John McIntyre, and Jeanette Nolan. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, is transcribed in Hollywood by Jaime Del Valle.
Every Sunday, CBS Radio's Bob Trout brings you a timely weekend roundup of world news. As a special eyewitness feature, an overseas CBS Radio News correspondent flies in to give you an up-to-the-minute account of developments on his beat. Don't miss Bob Trout's World News Roundup Sundays on the CBS Radio Network.
From December 5th, 1952, John Lund, as yours truly, Johnny Dollar. And by the way, I said that this was recycled, and it was, because the James Clayton Matter would become the Shepard Matter 4 years later. It's taken to May 20th, 1956, so you can hear the conclusion of the Shepard Matter, a 5-part yours truly Johnny Dollar story. This episode aired April 20th, 1956, starring Bob Bailey.
From Hollywood, it's time now for Johnny Dollar.
This is the hotel operator, Mr. Dollar. Were you cut off?
Tell her not to let any more calls in here.
Come on. I was cut off, but I'd rather get some sleep now. Anybody phones, just take a message.
All right, Mr. Dollar.
Over there. Sit down. Put your hands on your knees. Now, just so as you and I understand each other, you make one move. Wiggle a finger, I'll empty this gun right in your stomach. You understand me?
I understand you, Forbes. You're crazy. Tonight, and every weekday night, Bob Bailey in the transcribed adventures of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar. To Richard Porter, 480 Webster Boulevard, Providence, Rhode Island.
The following is an accounting of expenditures during my investigation of the Shepard matter. I was pretty sick of it and with it when I had Paul Forbes visit me in my hotel room about 7 o'clock in the morning. He'd used a gun in front of me once before to crack my skull. I decided I'd try to avoid that again. So I sat down and I played good. It didn't seem to please him a bit.
You were out to my house about an hour ago, weren't you?
Yeah, I went out to talk to your wife.
Yeah, I saw you. I was across the street watching. I followed you here. Fixing up another deal, huh?
I don't know what you're talking about, Forbes.
I followed you here so we could have a little talk. And we're going to have it, you and I.
You ought to put that gun away and let them take you, Forbes.
Where do you live?
In Hartford, Connecticut.
I mean, where do you live in town, here in Providence?
I don't. I live in Hartford.
Where do you practice?
Practice what?
Are you trying to get funny with me?
I don't practice anything here in Providence. I don't live here. I'm just here for a few days.
Doing what?
Working on an insurance matter.
Insurance matter? You're licensed to practice law in Rhode Island?
Oh, you've got something all wrong, Forbes. I don't practice law. I'm not a lawyer. I'm an insurance investigator. I tried to tell you that yesterday morning when you cracked me with that gun. I was called in by Dr. Shepard. He said you threatened his life.
You're lying to me. Shepard called me yesterday morning and said a lawyer named Dollar was on his way over to talk to me about giving Pauline a divorce. You're a lawyer.
I'm what I say I am. If you hadn't started swinging that gun butt around, I'd have told you why I was there yesterday.
You got a billfold or something?
My coat pocket inside on the back of that chair there. I think I know why Shepard called you and told you I was a lawyer. I think he wanted you to attack me and make me
Shut up! You and Shepard are trying to pull something to take my wife away from me. I know that much. And now you're trying to pull something to get out of this jam.
You're wrong, Forbes. I don't know anything about trying to take your wife away from you.
You know I didn't kill Shepard.
How do I know you didn't kill him? You threatened him. Half a dozen people have attested to that. I know you had a reason to kill him. I know every time I've seen you, you had a gun in your hands and you've been swinging it at somebody, particularly me.
You know who did it. You're in on it somewhere. You know who killed Shepard, and you're going to clear me. You're going to tell me, Dollar. I'm going to whip it out of you. You're going to crazy.
All right. Get on your feet. He sat in the chair just the way I propped him there. His eyes looked dull and lifeless, as though he were already dead. I couldn't think of anything brilliant to say or do, so I rummaged around my suitcase and pulled out a bottle. Then I found a pair of glasses in the bathroom and poured a couple of drinks. When I came on out, he hadn't moved from the chair. He looked crumpled, like a worn-out suit of clothes. He made no effort to look at me when I tucked the glass in his hand. Here, try this.
Huh?
Go on, drink it.
Why didn't you call the police?
Now, you say you followed me here to have a talk and find out what's what. Now's the time to talk, pal. This thing isn't the best conversation piece in the world.
Leave me alone. Call him in.
You have something going for you here. This gun hasn't been fired. Do you have another one?
No, Dollar, I didn't kill Dr. Shepard. I wanted to more than anything in the world. But I didn't kill him.
Now, look, I want some facts. So let's start with last night. Where were you when Shepard was shot?
How do I know where I was? I don't even know what time he was shot.
All right, let's start with yesterday morning. You slugged me, ran out of the house, jumped in a car, and what happened? Go on, take it from there.
I drove over to Dr. Shepard's office. I was going to have it out with him. He was breaking up my home.
Well, go on. Did you see him?
No. I parked down the street from his office, and then I saw him jump in his car, and I followed him. He came back over here. I knew my wife must have called him to take care of you.
What happened then?
I went over to the park and sat and tried to figure things out. You don't know what I've been through this past year.
All right, go on.
Then I went to a bar. I was hungry. I hadn't eaten all day. I got a couple of sandwiches, and then I had some drinks. I don't know how many. Anyhow, the more I drank, the more hopeless everything looked.
Did you call Shepard?
Yeah, I called him from the bar.
Any idea what time it was?
Must have been around 5 or 6. What difference does it all make? I'm cooked, and you know it.
Go on, will you? You called Shepard. Then what did you do?
I told him I wanted to talk to him about everything that had happened. I told him where to meet me.
You mean you wanted Dr. Shepard to come down and meet you so you could kill him?
Maybe I did have that in my mind. I don't know. On the phone, he sounded so calm and said we could talk it out and straighten it out like gentlemen.
Did you talk to him?
No. I didn't see him at all. I waited an hour and he never showed up. I called his office back and the answering service said everyone had gone out for the day and I didn't know what to do. I got back in my car and turned on the radio, and that's where I heard I was wanted for murder. Dollar, I didn't do it. I swear I didn't. I had reason enough, but I didn't. I knew all about the others, but this was serious.
Wait a minute. What others?
Pauline's always had other friends. Friends. I guess... I don't know. I don't guess I love her anymore. I don't know. I don't think she ever loved me. But I needed her. I needed her more than anything this last year or so. And at times I did love her the way it once was. And I found out what was going on between her and Shepard. She wanted a divorce. I wouldn't give her a divorce. If I had let her and Shepard get away with it, would have been too much to take, to ask.
Oh, this doesn't make sense. Even though you didn't love her and she didn't love you, you wouldn't stand still for a divorce action? It sounds stupid.
I just told you. I needed her so much this last year or so. So much.
Still doesn't make any sense, Forbes. Why didn't you let her go?
She knew she didn't have to divorce me. She knew it wouldn't be too long.
What?
Shepard gave me a year. Another doctor in Baltimore, 18 months. Leukemia. Don't you see? She would have been free. They could have waited until I was dead at least. Just that, until I was dead. Couldn't they? Well, couldn't they?
Expense account item 10, $2, sleeping pills. I fed them to him along with a cup of hot chocolate. He looked pretty worn out, and within 15 minutes he was sound asleep in my bed. Item 11, $4.16, one long-distance phone call to a Baltimore clinic where I spoke with a Dr. Franz Mueller. Dr. Mueller confirmed what Forbes had said. Forbes was doomed with an incurable ailment. Item 12, 20 cents, another phone call, this one from the hotel lobby to the coroner's office. I learned that Shepard had been killed by 32 caliber slugs. Forbes' gun, a .32, had not been fired or hastily cleaned. His story was checking out. That left just one small item to be cleared up. Expense account item 13, $4. Taxi fare from my hotel back to the Oakdale home. Special rates for nurses.
Hello. I thought you'd be back to see me. Somehow I'm glad it's you, Mr. Dollar.
Go ahead.
It's an old story. Terribly old and corny. I applied for a job as Dr. Shepard's nurse 5 years ago, and I fell in love with him that very day. I've loved him every day from that time on. 5 years.
Go on.
I don't know when it was, when he started up with Mrs. Forbes. I knew she was trying to get a divorce. I knew Mr. Forbes wouldn't stand for it. Then one day, last week I guess it was, I heard Doctor talking to her on the phone. He said, there's a way to get rid of him. I knew he was talking about getting rid of Mr. Forbes.
Did they discuss the part about Shepard getting Forbes to threaten his life in front of witnesses so he could shoot him down when the time came?
No, I didn't know that until yesterday morning. So long ago, it seems. You came to see Doctor, and then you left. I overheard him on the phone again. He called up Mr. Forbes and said Mr. Dollar was coming over to talk about the divorce action.
And he knew Forbes would be upset enough to attack me.
Doctor was very good about anticipating what people would do in given situations. Even me. I was in the office when Mr. Forbes called last night. I saw Doctor put the gun in his coat. I knew he was going down to meet Mr. Forbes and shoot him, so I followed him. He was walking around in the dark looking for Mr. Forbes with a gun in his hand. I ran up to him and pleaded with him not to be crazy, that Mrs. Forbes wasn't worth it. Then he said he was going to kill me, too.
We struggled. The gun went off. I don't know how many times.
I can help you, Corinne. You didn't mean to kill him. He meant to shoot you. When all these other details come out, the most they can charge you with is second-degree justifiable or manslaughter.
No. You're nice. But I can't get off.
Huh?
I guess the police haven't found her yet. I went over and killed Mrs. Forbes an hour ago.
Expense account item 14, same as item 1, transportation back to Hartford. The next time you have a doubtful insurance application, Mr. Porter, settle it yourself or call someone else. Don't call me. As far as I can add up, and I'm not going to recheck the figures, expense account total is $485. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Now, here's our star to tell you about next week's intriguing story.
Next week, the case of a lonely heart that found plenty of company in the nearest morgue. Join us, won't you? Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, starring Bob Bailey, is transcribed in Hollywood. Written by John Dawson, it is produced and directed by Jack Johnstone. Heard in this week's cast were Gene Bates, Virginia Gregg, Russell Thorson, Parley Bear, Herb Ellis, Barney Phillips, and Lawrence Dobkin. Musical supervision by Amerigo Marino. Be sure to join us on Monday night, same time and station, for another exciting story of yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Roy Rowan speaking.
Now, I don't know, and by the way, that's yours truly, Johnny Dollar, from April 20th, 1956, the fifth part of the Shepard Matter, which dovetails off to the rather a rewriting of the James Clayton Matter that you heard in the first part of this podcast. Now, I have to tell you that in listening to this, the very, very plainly, the script was okay, but it was punched up a lot by not only Jack Johnstone, who was the producer and director of yours truly, Johnny Dollar, the 15-minute shows. The music by Amerigo Marino, which, let's be honest, it was a live orchestra, but those were recorded tracks. And you would hear them all from whatever production library CBS used at that point in time. But quite frankly, I think that the production tracks by Amerigo Marino came off much better than the live organ on the John Lund version. John Lund, quite a good actor, and did a lot in his time. In fact, we have run him on our regular classic radio theater program from time to time. We've had him on in a couple of shows, Lunch Kit from 1949 on Suspense, and we've had him on The Man Who Stole the Bible in New Orleans, also from 1956. Lund's style, while it was a good acting style, did not fit with yours truly, Johnny Dollar. And those are just my opinions, nobody else's. You can have your own. It's like some people prefer Willard Waterman, some people prefer Harold Perry as the Great Gildersleeve. Anyway, thank you for tuning in to Wyatt's Favorite Radio. We will be back again in the near future. So subscribe and keep an eye out on your favorite podcast app. Search for Wyatt's Favorite Radio or go to anchor.fm/Wyatt Cox. We'll see you next time on Wyatt's Favorite Radio.